Hey Diane,
Hey, Emily.
how are you?
I'm good. I'm very excited for this.
Yeah, I'm nervous, a little
Are
bit,
you?
little bit.
You're the expert, so you could be lying to us for all we know. Let's
I'm
see.
gonna test out sharing my screen. Let's see.
Also, are we able to edit down the recording later so nobody has to listen to us yammer on for 10 minutes before we get started?
You should, yeah, for sure.
Hey, Polly.
Hi. How are y'all doing?
Good.
Good.
Mhm.
Diane, I missed this morning's meeting. What did I miss?
It was mostly just chatting about the May university picnic.
Okay.
So I'm sure Andy will send out a request, but I think we're gonna meet again Tuesday, May 3rd.
Okay.
So it's a little different than our normal time, but it's because if we wait to our normal meeting, it'll be after the picnic, so we need to meet again before then.
Yeah.
And yeah, and to bring in your summer like game or like summer object to be put with the raffle or
Okay.
like on that meeting day. We'll bring it
Gotcha.
in, they're gonna stuff it that day.
Can we bring a book, you think? Like a
Yeah,
summer beach read?
yeah, a beach read, that'd be fun. She said anything that we think that people would enjoy for this summer.
Okay. I think that'll be a good raffle.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Right. Were you able to share your screen okay, Emily?
I think so. Let's try it again and see.
Oh, hi, Dr. Birch.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Mary Ann's coming in too.
Good.
Hey, Dr. Birch.
Good deal.
Hey.
Yeah, it looks like it's working just fine.
Right. All right. I know there's a lot of people excited about this topic, so hoping we'll have a good turnout.
Hopefully so.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, no lunch though, but it was a little late.
I know.
You guys can eat your lunch while you're watching, I guess.
All right, we'll just give it about 2 more minutes, guys, and then we'll get started.
Okay.
Just let people trickle in.
Hello.
Hi, Tammy.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good.
All right, Emily, are you okay with people putting any questions they have in the chat? Or would you like people like to ask as we go and I can interrupt with any questions, or would you want to save those till the end? What works best?
Either way works best. Let's keep this pretty non-formal, so I'll be a little less nervous. So if you guys feel like interrupting me, if you have a question, feel free to do so. If you feel more comfortable putting it in the chat, that works too, and we can maybe address those at the end.
Perfect. That sounds good.
Mm.
All right. Well, thank you guys for being here. I hope everyone's having a great Tuesday. We'll go ahead and get started. And again, if you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and pop in, or just put them in the chat and we'll address them at the end. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to our expert, Emily Thomason.
Hey guys, I'm Emily Thomason. I think I've met most of you guys either in person, over the phone, through email, but I've been with Brenau for a little over 2 years, which is pretty crazy to think about. But before that, I worked at a help desk for about 5 years, and I have some experience in Excel. I am by no means an expert, I wouldn't say, but I do use it fairly frequently, maybe not to the level that some people use it. But I plan to just kind of go over first just some of the benefits of using Excel versus Sheet, and then I'll dig into Excel and I'll actually share my screen and let you guys see what I'm clicking, what I'm doing, so that way you guys have a good idea of where everything's located. And then I'll switch over to Sheets at the end of that, and then I'll do a similar thing in Google Sheets, and then we'll take questions at the end. Does that sound good? All right, let me share my screen here. Can everybody see my Excel screen? Perfect. Okay, so to start off, we have 2 options for a workbook program here at Brenau. We have both Excel and Google Sheets. So some of the benefits of using Google Sheets is that it auto-saves as you're working, and it saves within seconds of you making a change. So that's a really handy feature that you don't have to worry about going in and constantly saving. Another good thing with Google Sheets is that it's the same version across the board. One big complaint about Excel is there's so many different versions of Excel. You know, here at Brenau, most people are on 2016, but we'll slowly be moving to either 2019 or even newer versions as we start upgrading Windows 11. So the differences in versions can cause things to be in different places and can be kind of confusing. So that's one benefit of using Google Sheets, is that it's all the same version and everything is, for the most part, in the same place. There's very few updates as to where things are located. And then another thing that Google Sheets has that Excel does not, or that is a lot harder to do in Excel, is the ability to collaborate and share. And we'll go over that when we go over Google Sheets, but I'll show you guys how to share a sheet with other people and how you can both work at the same time in the same sheet. And it also just has some neat functionality. One of the things I actually learned when I was preparing for this class was a forms to sheet feature in Google Sheets that I'll show you guys if we have time at the end. But basically you can build out a Google form, have people answer questions, and then it will automatically transpose that into a sheet with all of the data that you collect. So that's a pretty handy feature. Some of the cons of working in Google Sheets is that it does require you to be online unless you switch it to offline mode to save anything. So that could be an issue if you're working in an area that doesn't have good internet or a public area. You'd have to make sure you save the file as an offline file before you're able to go in and make edits for it to save. Another negative to Google Sheets is it's not quite as robust as Excel. Excel just has a ton of functionality. A lot of it we probably won't even touch in this class. We could go for hours and hours and hours talking about a lot of the functionality in Excel. But for the most part, Google Sheets has a lot of the functionality, but it's a little bit more limited. So in Excel, some of the things that are good with Excel is, like I said, it is a very powerful tool. There is tons of different things you can do as far as data manipulation. And another thing that Excel has going for it is it's pretty much still the industry standard. Most people grew up using Excel, different versions of Excel, and are more familiar with Excel. So if you leave Brenau, go to another place, Excel would be a really good tool to have. So we'll spend most of today going over Excel rather than Google Sheets. So we'll go ahead and get started. And in Excel, you can see here, if you're looking at my screen, you have the option when you first open it up to open up a blank workbook. You can also do templates. So if we click here on more templates, it gives you a list of all kinds of different templates you can use. There's calendars, there's budgets. So if you're just looking for something where you just input the data and it automatically spits out a chart or spits out data, that's a way to go. There are also really handy tools in Excel. So just to show you one, you can go through and actually take tours through Excel and click through these, and it actually shows you how to do different things, some of the things that we'll actually go over in class today, but it'll show you how to go through Excel, and it actually lets you manipulate the data while you're learning, which I think is a really cool tool. So there is that. But for our purposes, we'll just start a blank workbook. And you can see here at the top, this is called the quick access toolbar. We'll go into in just a bit how you can customize this to how you guys like. And then there is also the ribbon in Excel. And depending on what tab you're in, the information in the ribbon changes. And Excel is broken up into a series of columns and rows and sheets down at the bottom. So if you wanted to add a sheet, you would just click the plus sign here and you could have multiple sheets to work off of. And then to rename the sheet, you can just right click and rename the sheet here. You can also move it, delete it, or add more this way too. So for our purposes, we'll rename this as a test or example. And then in Excel, you're broken up into columns and rows. Each cell is defined by the column and the row. So for this cell right here, it would be cell B2. That will be important when you're working in functions and you're working with adding different functions in Excel. But first, we'll go under some options that you have. And what you can do here is you can actually go through and customize a lot of what you see in Excel from this window. So that was File, Options. Under the General tab, there's not a whole lot you probably want to change, but you can actually change what font is the default font when you open up Excel, what font size is the default when you open it up. And you can also change the theme too. So if you prefer like a dark gray theme, it'll actually change the background colors and stuff like that. If we go back to our general here and switch it back to white. You can also change some of the things as far as formula and data goes. Most people for a beginner level won't need to make any changes there. One thing that is important here is the Save tab. It is very important to make sure that you have auto recover set if you want to make sure that your Excel is saving copies of your file while you're working. So if you turn this check mark on, and it should be set on by default here at Brenau, so just make sure that that check mark is set, and you can actually change what the time limit is, how often you want Excel to update and auto save for you. So this is really important if in the middle of working on an Excel spreadsheet, you haven't saved anything in hours and your computer crashes. If your computer comes back up, you'll be able to access an auto-saved version of your file. And to find out where it's saving those, you can go through here too. And it tells you the actual file location that it's saving it. So if we were to copy that file location right here, just Control+C is copy, you can open up your File Explorer and actually go to the location that it auto saves all of your files. So that's really handy if, let's say you're working on a spreadsheet, forgot to save it, come in the next day, your computer's restarted because it ran updates overnight and you feel like you lost everything. But you can actually open up this location, find the location that your files are saving, go to them and actually save it in a location that you like. And another good feature here is to save back to computer by default. You can actually set the default location that you want the files to save to. So that way, when you just click the save button, it's automatically going to save to that location. So I have my Google Drive set here. You can have your C Drive set here, document set here, anything like that set right there. And that's most of the save. Under advanced, there's several different things that you can change. One thing that's really handy, I find, is to change what happens after you press enter. So some people prefer when they press enter it to automatically shift to the next cell down, but you can actually change it to shift right, left, up, or down. So that's a handy feature too. And let's see. Some of the big ones here is you can actually customize the ribbon that we had talked about up at the top and customize the quick access toolbar. So if we're customizing the ribbon, these are all the different tabs that you see here. So home, insert, page, layout, those are listed here. And you can actually add things in there if you don't, if you find that you're constantly needing a specific feature here, you can add those in to be under any ribbon tab that you'd like them to be. One thing that I find really handy is adding things to the quick access toolbar. So you can go in, let's say we wanted to add cut. You just select whatever you want to add, choose the add button, and then say okay, and see how it automatically adds that to my toolbar up here. And the good thing about the toolbar is no matter what tab you're in on your ribbon, the toolbar is going to stay the same. So things that you access, all the time in different places, it's a good idea to add those there. And I think that pretty much covers the options. Any questions so far? Okay. So let's open up an example here. Can you guys see that example that just opened? Perfect. So for this example, we have some data, and what we'll do is we'll kind of go through some of the very simple functions you can do. One thing you can do is select all of that, all of the data here. Click on the Insert tab and insert as a, let's see. Let's actually format it here. Okay, we'll right click and do table and turn into a table. Ooh. There it is. So we'll select all. And let's see. We can. Well, we'll just show you down here. So if we had a table of, let's say, months here, we could do June, July, August. If we wanted to continue this theme down, you can click on the edge or hover over the edge of the cell and you get your cursor will change to the smaller cross. If you pull down, this is going to autofill a lot of the content for you. So if you're working with months, it'll do this for numbers. Anytime it recognizes a pattern, you can do a quick fill there. And let's say we're just going to add some numbers here. And then again, we can quick fill all of that information. Let's see if we can get it to create a table for us. Okay, there we go. So it asks you where the data is for your table. You can input this manually, or you can just select like we did and create a table. You can say that your table has headers and it'll add those in. And then you just go in and you have a full table that you can adjust the style of, and this is just a way for the data to be a little bit more easy to view, easy to work with. So let's say if we wanted to go back here and change and do some of the formatting. So if we do conditional formatting, this is a way of looking at the data and pointing out different things. So let's say we wanted to look at and highlight anything that was greater than a specific number. So for this one, we'll say greater than 20. And you can actually change what you want that to look like. So you can change it to be a yellow fill, green fill, red fill, and it will highlight anything that you select there to greater than 20. So this is a good way for you to call out specific things in your data. So if we were looking at this chart here, let's say we select it, conditional formatting. Let's say we wanted to look at less than, and let's say less than 25,000. And we want it to show up in yellow. So we can do that here in this data set. And that calls out anything that would be less than that value that you set. And there's a ton of things that you can do here too. You can set an equal to. So if we were to select a data set here, and if we wanted to do equal to, we could look at what was equal to, let's say, 40,000. And we'll switch that to green. And so this is just a way of manipulating the data that really calls your attention to specific things. Let's see, another thing that we can do is we can sum the data. So if we wanted to get a total of this for November, you would just select what you would want to do and auto sum. That will automatically add the sum function into the next cell of that column. So, and you can see here in the function line, the function equals to sum, and then it highlights the specific cells that it's looking at. So for this example, it would be D2 differentiated with a colon, D9. Another thing you can do with that, if we want to, let's see, change what function we're looking at. There's some very quick options you can look through here. So if you select this little drop down that appears next to the function cell, you can change it to actually look at the average of that data set. You can change it to look at a count, so tell you what the total count of each of those is. You can find the maximum this way. You can find the minimum this way. There's a ton of different things that you can do right there, and you can actually open up more functions and go through and add any different function here. Another thing that is really helpful is when you're looking at a data set, you may want to change the way that the numbers appear. So if you, in this number field, select the data, you can change it to be a currency if you're looking at prices. So if you switch that here, it'll turn that data set all into a currency, into numbers. And you can also manipulate that here with some of these quick buttons. And if you wanted to look more into any of these sections, you can just hover over this little box with an arrow pointing out. Click on that and it'll give you a full range of things that you can do within each of those steps. All right. Another thing that's really common to do in Excel is to want to be able to find something. So you can go over here to the editing under the home tab and you can do find. You can also press Control F on your keyboard and that brings you to the same thing. And then when we're done, I'll send you guys the spreadsheet of all of the different keyboard shortcuts if that's helpful for you too. There's a ton of different keyboard shortcuts that you can use in Excel. So let's say we wanted to find meat. We would just search for what we want to find all, and it'll show you where those are located. and then you can click through and it'll highlight each of those cells. This is really helpful when you're working with a lot of data and you need to find a very specific thing. Let's see, some of the insert functions we can go through. One thing that's really interesting is you can insert charts. So let's say we wanted to select this group of data and we wanted to create a chart. You can click on recommended charts and it'll look at the data and it'll tell you what chart it thinks might be the best way to present that data. And you can go through and you can look through the different charts. Pick one. And then it'll give you all of that information displayed in a chart. And you can actually go through and edit the different things that display, the title, all of that is editable too. We'll pull that back. There we go. You can also, if you wanted to, insert pictures, hyperlinks, anything like that within Excel as well. One thing that's really helpful is page layout. In Excel, it's really hard to tell what things are going to print on a page. So this is a really helpful thing if you wanted to select, let's say we wanted to print this specific area. You would just select that and then click this print area button and set print area. And that's actually going to set the area of what you want to print. So if we were to go to File and Print, it would actually pull that as the location, and only that would display. You can also adjust your margins here for when you're printing, page breaks, anything like that right there. Let's see. Another thing that's helpful in page layout is you can do adjusting scale to fit to see what's on the page. You can zoom. You can also make those adjustments down here at the bottom. So you can slide that toggle bar to change your zoom too. And then under the formulas, this is where you can go through and play with some of the formulas. You can insert a function. Let's see if we wanted to select here. It will start the function process. You can go through, especially while you're learning, and select the different types of functions, and it'll give you a little overview of what the function is going to do. And it'll also tell you what is needed. So for example, for a sum, you need to get the starting point and then the ending point, so number 1 and number 2. So if we wanted to do a sum function, we could do okay there. It asks for the numbers that it's calling out. So we want to look at C2, which is this cell right here. And if we want to total all of the numbers between C2 and C9, we would just select those here. So we would do C2 and then differentiate with a colon and then C9. And then that would give you a total. And it also tells you what that function looks like. Once you get good at it, you can actually enter your own functions here. So if you knew the function you wanted to look up by the code, you just type the equal sign to call out a function, the function that you're looking for, and then the cells that it involves. And different functions will ask for different pieces of data. So let's see. And there are just a ton of functions you can use. We won't go into all of them, but there's text functions, there's functions that you can look at the numbers, financial functions, and logistical functions too to pull out information in your data. Let's see. One thing that's a lot of people are doing when they're working in Excel is they're pulling data from a different location. So they're pulling data from like the internet or from a different source, and they would want to import that in a way that, or open that in a way that they can view it in Excel. So if you're exporting data so that you can manipulate it in Excel, there's different ways that you can choose to save that data. If you save it as an Excel workbook, that will open up just with the content that was displayed But if you save it as a CSV file, it will actually just pull the text out and eliminate it by commas. So if you were looking at if you're on a website and you're trying to pull a big spreadsheet of data, but you just really want the numerical values, just the numbers that are there, not necessarily charts or fonts or anything like that, you can export that as a CSV file and it'll open up just this plain text within Excel. And anywhere there's a comma, it will put it in a different cell. So that's a handy feature there. One thing that's really helpful too is help. You can go to show training. Most things in Excel, if you can hover to discover different things. So if you're working and you hover your pointer long enough, it will give you a breakdown of what the feature does. It'll tell you exactly what that feature does. That is kind of a very rough overview. Any questions so far?
I don't see any questions in the chat yet, but we got some good feedback on what you've covered so far. People were excited about the autofill feature specifically.
Okay, good deal. And then as you're working with a lot of different data, you'll probably be working with different sheets. When you're working in functions, you can actually call out different sheets too, depending on what function you're using. So that's a helpful thing. Let's see. If we wanted to save, we would go to save, would just save to whatever default location you had set under the options that we reviewed. So let's say we want to browse to a place to save this. So we're gonna save this in our Google Drive. We're gonna save it as example 2. And it gives you the option to save as a type. And so for things that you're just gonna be working in Excel, you can just save as an Excel worksheet or workbook. This will keep any of the formatting you've done, any of the font you've done, any charts or anything like that. If you are trying to export this data somewhere else, you may need to set it as a comma delimited file or CSV file. And that, like I had said, we'll change it into just a text file, just the data separated by commas to delimit, to show where the cells would go. So for us, we're going to save this as an Excel workbook and hit save. And then what we'll do can you guys see the Google Chrome I just pulled over? Perfect. We will open it up in our Google Sheets. So what I'll do, I'll open up my Google Drive here. And when I do this, let's see, there it is. When you save to your Google Drive, you can actually access it from any different computer. So you can save to your Google Drive if you're here at work and then go home. And if you wanted to continue to work on it on your personal computer, you can upload it to your Google Drive, log into your drive from Chrome and open it. The only thing to note is when you do that, it will automatically open it as a Google Sheet. A way around that is if you're here at work, you save it to your Google Drive. If you go to your Google Drive through the mounted Google Drive, through the G Drive here, it will open it up as an Excel file because it was saved as an Excel file. So that's one thing to note is if you're going to work on it at home and you're trying to access it through your Google Drive at home on a personal computer, it will open it up as a sheet rather than an Excel file. Now you can always download it. So if you were to click here, and if you wanted to, let's say, download this back to open up with Excel, you would just click File, Download, Microsoft Excel, and it would download it as an Excel sheet that you could work off of that way. You would just need to make sure that you go back in and upload it into your Google Drive, any changes that you make, if you don't want to make those in Sheets. So as I said before, Sheets is very nice in that any changes that you make, so let's say, and we'll just pull some random things in here. So again, the same thing, if you hover over the bottom corner of this cell, just like in Excel, you can drag and it will automatically fill in any of the data if it recognizes a pattern. Now for here, it's probably not going to recognize any sort of pattern, so it would just populate the date in. So really only works if you've established a clear pattern. But let's see, we'll just pull what it finds. Okay, and so it automatically just increments up by 1 for the date. Another thing you can do is select the columns. And if you wanted to, let's see how September is kind of cut off there. Double click that line when it's selected and it'll automatically spread that column so that the full text is viewable. So that's a handy trick to have. But see, it pulled over our different sheets. We have sheet 1, we have sheet 2, and it pulls over all of the different things that we had done in Excel. So you can see when we select a cell that has a formula, it will pull that formula up in the formula bar. So all of that content will stay as long as you're saving it as a workbook. If we wanted to share this with somebody, let's say that we have somebody in the office and we're collaborating on the same Google Sheet, you just hit this share button up in the very upper right, and you can add the person by email. You can add, you can also get a link to this if you wanted to share it with somebody directly through the link rather than through email. But let's say I wanted to send this to Eli. You'd want to make sure that you notify the person. You can uncheck that if you'd like, but you'd want them to know that you're sharing that file. And you can leave them a short little message about what it is that you're sending them. And you can also change their permissions. So if you just want someone to be able to view the sheet but not make any changes, you can set them as a viewer. If you want them to be able to make comments on the sheet but not to actually be able to edit or manipulate the data, you can set them as a commenter, or you can set them as an editor and they can actually go in and make changes. So this is really handy if you're working with somebody and you both need to make changes to the same set of data. You can do that way. And you can both be in the same sheet at the same time working. It'll show you the cell if they're working in a cell. It'll show you the specific cell that they have selected and what changes they've made. So as you can see that this is saving automatically. So if we click here on this little cloud, it tells you that it was saved to the drive. Let's see if we make any changes. It'll tell you that the last edit, when you made the last edit and the last edit, that it was saved. See how it just said save to drive there. So it lets you know that it's saving second by second. If you click on this edit, it will give you actually a version's history of all of the different changes that you've made. So that's a pretty handy feature, especially when you're collaborating with people. You can go in and see what different changes people made. The thing with Sheets, though, is that a lot of the things are in different places. So the zoom, a lot of the things are pulled down here on this quick action toolbar. And then you have these different tabs at the top that actually pull down in a drop-down list rather than as a ribbon at the top, like you see in Excel. A lot of the same functionalities there, it's just in different places. But one thing that's helpful when you're working in Sheets or any of the Google Suite is you can make a document available offline. That way you can open it when you're not connected to the internet and make changes to that document. So that's something that might be helpful too. If you know you're going to be in a place where you don't have good internet, but you still want to work on a spreadsheet, you can make it available offline. You would just need to do that before you're offline, obviously. Otherwise, any edits you make won't be saved. But let's see. If we had, let's just say, no. Let's switch over to this one. So let's say we wanted to total this list. You have the functions button here over to the very far right. And it gives you a full list of different functions. All of these that you can expand and play with. Some Google specific functions, which are interesting. So let's say we wanted to get the sum of this list. It'll automatically pull that out, just like in Excel. The functions are still there. You have the option to view and change, just like we had done. You also have the conditional formatting that we had worked on. And it pulls those rules in from the original file, but you can add different rules. It's just a little bit of a different way to do the same thing. You would just apply the range, that if it is not empty, and go through the rules there. You can also insert charts and pivot tables, images and drawings too. Any of that is available in the Google Suite. Let's see. We switch back over. I'm going to open a blank one. One thing that's really, really neat about using the Google Sheets is you can create a Google form off of them, and we'll just give this a name of example. You can set specific questions. You can change how those questions need to be populated, whether they need to be a multiple choice, a checkbox, a drop down, or free text. We'll just do multiple choice. And one, test 2, test 3. You can also add different questions. You can make a whole list of different questions. Send this once you finish to a group of people through email, through a hyperlink. And then once they respond, you'll get a list of responses here that you can view in a Google Sheet. So let's say that you wanted to gather a bunch of different data from students about a particular event, what they want to see in the event, what they don't want to see in the event. You can make a Google form, send it out to that group of people, get their responses, and it'll actually put it in a really handy sheet automatically for you. That's a really cool feature of Google Sheets that I really like. Any questions so far? I think that pretty much covers most of the content I was going to cover, just a really, really basic overview of the two of them and what makes them better or worse over the other, and when to use each version.
All right. Thank you so much, Emily. It looks like even Drew learned something, and he's like the king of spreadsheets. So you were doing something right. And
That's
I think
good.
everybody else did too. I know I learned something, many somethings. So if people do have questions about Google Sheets or Excel that they're working in the future, is it okay to reach out to you with those questions, or is there another way that they should direct those questions?
Sure.
to
Yeah,
you?
you can reach out to me directly if you'd like. You can also reach out to the help desk if you want to
Mhm.
schedule like a meeting to go over a specific area in Excel. We can do that too. Some areas like database work and stuff like that, Chuck might be a little bit of a better point of contact, but I can definitely work to get as many things as or find out what I can. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me. And then what I can do, if we can get a list of everybody that's in this Zoom, I can send out a list of tutorials that I have and then keyboard shortcuts as well.
And I would be happy to post those links in the update when we post the recording
Okay,
of this. That way it's open to everybody, even if they weren't here today.
sure.
And then it'll all be together in one place. Because I think that would be super helpful for everybody, including
Yeah.
those who didn't make it live.
Okay. Yeah, I will send those to you after we get off.
Perfect. All right. So if there are no final questions, I think that's all the content we had today. Thank you guys so much for coming. If anybody has any feedback for the staff development committee, please feel free to reach out to me. And again, we'll have all this information, the recording and those spreadsheets and info from Emily in the update in just a few days. Just need time to gather it all and edit down the recording. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Thank you, Emily.
All right. I guess I'll go ahead and close out the Zoom, Emily, unless there's anything else you need from me.
Nope. I'll get you those links probably this afternoon and then that'll be it.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Diane, for getting this all together.
Of course. Thank you for hosting. Honestly,
You're
moment of the hour. All right.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye, everybody.